So we continue in Exodus with the story of freedom. And freedom, that's a word that we like. That's a word that we know, right? Land of the free. That's us. We're the freest people on the planet. We can say what we want. We can do what we want. We can live where we want. And most importantly of all, we can buy whatever we want, right? We've got lots and lots of buying choices. But are we really free? I think all of us have had the experience of struggling against something that would weigh us down, something that oppresses us, right? Whether it's an addiction, whether it's the struggle with a family member, whether it's unemployment, whether it's a work environment that's oppressive and not life-giving at all. We all have places in our lives where we're not free. And I mean, maybe the place where we realize it the least, but it affects us the most, is in that last place where we can buy whatever we want. Now, is that really freedom? Or do all those messages that we get all the time telling us that we need one more thing, is that really a lack of freedom? Or is it freedom? Think about it. We're part of this system that just takes not only our money, but I think sucks life out of us too. The people of Israel were free from slavery in Egypt, right? Moses got the call from God, led the people out of Egypt. They're no longer slaves, right? They're no longer under their taskmasters, but they're really not free yet. The way that Brian McLaren puts it is, yes, the people had come out of slavery, but the slavery was not yet out of the people. Right? They had lived under that system of oppression for 400 years. And if you think about it, they had lived as complete slaves. Their lives were completely controlled. Someone told them what to do every minute of the day. They couldn't even choose when they went to the bathroom. I mean, not that they had bathrooms, but you know what I mean. Right? They had, even that choice was not a choice that they could make. They were told what to do completely. And now, all of a sudden, here they are, they're out in the desert, and they don't have anybody to tell them what to do. But they're still in that mindset. And they need to be freed from that mindset. And so, God teaches them in the desert. And one of the first things that they learn is to be able to rely on God, right? They're out in the desert. There's not a lot of food out there. And so what does God send them but manna, right? Which literally in Hebrew means, what is this stuff? That's a good thing. What is this stuff? You know, as it appears on the ground, they eat it. It's satisfying. It's kind of odd, but it's enough. And that's the key. It's enough, but it's only enough. If you remember the way that story is, that enough manna gathers, you can gather up enough manna for a day. But if they tried to keep it too long, it would rot. If you tried to keep it for an extra day, it would get really nasty. And so what they learn is that they can trust God to provide for them, that they don't have to have a hoarding mentality. Wow, what a lesson. What a lesson. What a gift. So God gives them that gift, and then as they move through the desert, the slavery starts to seep out of them, and they get to the mountain of God and the Ten Commandments. Now, we tend to not think of the Ten Commandments as a gift, right? We tend to think of the commandments as something that we have to do. But really, these Ten Commandments are an incredible gift of getting the people out of the mentality of slavery. And if the way the Ten Commandments start, which we often forget, I mean, we say, well, if you say, recite the Ten Commandments, what's the first commandment?
Honor God.
Right, honor God, only one God, there's, only worship God, don't worship other gods. First commandment. But it doesn't start out with a you should, right? It starts out with a I am the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery in Egypt. It starts with, who is this God that's talking to us? Oh yeah, this is the God that saved us. This is the God that rescued us. This is the God that loves us. This is the God that set us free. And everything that follows comes from that God. From the God that has our best interests first. From the God that sets us free first. And so, when you get the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. Well, in the context, it's, who are you going to serve? Are you going to serve God, who sets you free? Or are you going to serve Pharaoh, who also says he's a God, who enslaves you? Are you going to serve the God who cares for the least of these, the God who's on the side of the slaves? Or are you going to serve one of the other gods who really has designed the world so that the rich and powerful stay rich and powerful, and you stay slaves? Which God are you going to serve? Can't be both ways. And it's the same for us, right? It can't be both ways. We can't serve the God who sets people free, the God who's on the side of slaves, the God who cares for the most vulnerable, and say, well, that's just for Sunday morning. The rest of the week, it's every man for himself. It sets us up for freedom. And it goes that way through the whole list of commandments. These are things that make us free people. Remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. And again, this is something that, in our context, we tend to think, we remember the days of the blue laws and when you couldn't even go out and buy a quart of milk on Sunday. How darned inconvenient, right? How uncivilized. I need a new pair of shoes. I need to go get them on Sunday because that's the only day that I have to go shopping. But this is, no. There's one day where you don't have to work to serve the system, right? There's one day where everybody gets a day off. You read this and it's not just, there's a day where you Israelites, because you're the favored people, you take a day off and let your foreign servants do all the work. No, that's not what it says, right? It says, on this day, you get a day off, your servants get a day off, the foreigners living among you get a day off. Guess what? Even the animals get a day off. Because we don't have to serve the 24/7 slave system anymore. It's not about us constantly working to get a little bit more, to build a little bit more, to make somebody else a little bit more money. That's not what it's about. It's about everybody in their dignity gets time to rest and to recognize that we depend on God for what we really need, not on our own constant efforts to work. And it goes further down. Honor your father and mother, a system where family becomes an important thing, right? That it's not serving the Pharaoh, serving the government, serving the overarching system like it was in Egypt, right? In Egypt, it was, you got the word from Pharaoh, you got a little boy, kill him, because we don't want any more little Hebrew boys. Well, no, that's not the way it works in God's system. Is that parents love children, and children love parents. Somebody has to take care of the parents when they get older. You shall not murder. Or, if you remember the way in older translations, you shall not kill. And I think that's really a better translation, because this isn't just about what we would call murder, right? Individual killing individual. This is saying, in the way that God made the world to be, in the free world of God, killing is not something that we do, right? That's just not part of who we are. That life is sacred. That life is something that we have reverence for. In all circumstances. How can you be free if your life isn't respected? If we don't respect the life of others, how can they be free? And so that's what God is saying. That this is a fundamental, a fundamental basis of how we can live together and exist together in freedom. And it goes, you go down the list until you get to what's probably the hardest one for us to get. You shall not covet. You shall not desire what other people have. Because isn't that where the bondage really starts? When we start thinking along the lines of, I really want what she has. Well, if only I had what he has, then my life would be good. And we live in a place of bondage. We live in a place where we're not free. Where we're not free to enjoy what God has already given us. Where we're not free to enjoy the people that are around us. Where we're not free to just live the life that we've been blessed with. And so, as the people move out of Egypt, as they move through the wilderness, slowly that slave mentality leaves them, right? They come to rely on God, they come to trust God, they come to not be reliant on the slave system anymore. But it takes a long time, right? There's no straight route from Egypt straight to the Promised Land, right? If you look on the map, it's like, how could it possibly have taken them 40 years, right? It's not that far. My daughter could walk that far in a few weeks. Well, it's because it's not just the straight line, the straight journey. It's the time for the slavery to get out of the people. And really, the way it happens in the story is 600,000 people come out of Egypt, right? 600,000 Israelites plus. How many of those people make it into the Promised Land? 2. Joshua and Caleb. So a whole generation passes away in the desert, right? It's so hard to get the slavery out of the people that whole generation has to kind of pass away and new people rise up to be born into freedom. That's why when Jesus talks about our new life, he talks about it as a new birth. He talks about it as something completely new, because that's what God does in us, to move us to the place of freedom. It's a gift. It's a powerful gift that changes the way we look at the world and that changes our entire lives. But it's not an easy gift to accept, right? Only 2 of those people were really able to internalize it. But God's active in our lives to help us to internalize it. Because we have an advantage that they didn't have, right? We have not only their witness, but the witness and the presence of Jesus in our lives. And that is the thing that truly makes us free and makes all the difference in the world. Thanks be to God.